Welcome back to VIR. As you can see, once again, cars on track as we get ready for a beautiful afternoon and early evening here, live from Virginia International Raceway. I'm Jonathan Green, and alongside me, as ever, Ben Sissel. And Ben, we finally got some decent weather. It's been actually quite nice today. We started off foggy and misty, but it's opened up a little bit, and I wouldn't say it's the greatest of days, but it's not bad now compared to what we've had.
No, this is nice. And VIR, with a little bit of clouds, you've got the green grass and the beautiful trees. It is nice. And compared to the days that we've been having here, this is a really nice change of pace as we have the Group 8 and 12B, what I call kind of medium bore production cars coming up around turn 10. And there are a great mix of cars in here. We've got Mark Drummond, Chip Stabler, Scott Kissinger, Keith Dunbar, Jim Lenahan, Paul Stinson, Steve Byrne, Bill Glavin, George Wright, John Nash, Rob Davenport, Norm Murdoch, Sharon Edelman, James Cullen, John Perry, Andrew Dahl, Alan Davis, Chris Rader, Caesar Cohn, Mark Skeen, Mike Skeen's dad. Mike won earlier in the TA2 race. Vince Vaccaro, Brian Kelt, Scott Birkland, David Bearden, and Glenn Maurer. We've got Alfa Romeos, BMWs, Datsuns, Lotus, Porsche. Let me see, going to Ford Capri at Ginetta, the beautiful Ginetta of Sharon Edelman, a Porsche 9146, another Porsche 9146, some 240Zs, BMW E30 M3s, and some Alfa Romeos. Great stuff out here. The Alfa Romeo GT V6 from Glenn Maurer. Hopefully it's out there. I don't see him, but there's some cool cars out there, Jonathan.
Yeah, and that Ginetta you mentioned is probably the oldest car at 1965. We've got cars ranging from 1965 to 1995. Pretty much my age group, pretty much. All these cars built when I was alive. How about that?
You weren't alive in 1996?
No, barely.
Yeah.
2020 is the year I definitely switched off, though.
Yeah.
I missed 2020.
Yeah, I think we all want to skip it.
Is there any penalties for missing 2020?
No, we skipped it.
I think we should all get, by law, a year back. Anyway, we're still racing, we're still having fun, and this, my friends, is COVID therapy. That's right. Sit back, enjoy the sunshine and the sounds of VIR, one of the most iconic circuits in the world. Don't let the blues of COVID get you down. Let's go racing. And we're here to bring you some of the best in the world. And they start to accelerate away. A full group of Group 8 and 12B. And it is the Alfa Romeo up against the BMW M3, the rather modern 95 BMW, but he's already been beaten to the punch into the horseshoe, and it's 202 who leads the way. Scott Kissinger in the Datsun 240Z.
Yeah, and Keith Dunbar in that little Lotus Elan from 1967, right behind him, really closed in on Chip Stabler in that 1995 BMW M3 as they come around NASCAR. But Kissinger's 240 is just really, really pretty as we see the orange 914 trying to come up behind Chip Stabler there.
Yeah, we've got a couple of the HMS beautifully prepared BMWs, about 3 of them in all, 2 of them on track at the moment. There's the 164 of Brian Kilt. Been watching them prepare that because their canopy's right below our commentary box, so I've been watching them all weekend. So Mark Skeen is Mike's dad, right?
Yeah, I just actually found that out from the crew at HMS. They were telling me that, and I had no idea. How did Mike never drop that to us, that my dad's here racing with us on the weekends?
Yeah, no kidding. So there you go. Well, we're up and running, as you can see, and we're approaching. There's the leader coming up the hill now, and he'll be approaching our second drone, which we just got a glimpse of. But a good battle for second place, starting to hot up already. And look at that, the mighty against the tiny. But it doesn't matter, as long as you get round the corners. And they're coming up to Oak Tree. There is Son of Oak Tree, but he's not in our shot at the moment. And the reason is that the oak tree that was there, sadly, is no longer. And so they had to plant a new one. And that's on the outside of the circuit, and that's called Son of Oak Tree. So we've still got it here at VIR, if you were wondering why we keep talking about an oak tree that you can't see. Because there's no more. Down the back straight they come then, and starting to spread out this field of Group 8 and Group 12. And Mark Drummond, Chip Stabler, Scott Kissinger in the lead, I think, at the moment. Well, not anymore. It's the BMW that's recovered, or are we looking at the second place man?
Kissinger's still in the lead.
Okay. Oh, yes, he is. A long way ahead.
Yeah. And Mark Brumman didn't make the call to grid. He was in the last Enduro in the 242 Alpha. That's Rob Davenport right there in that beautiful Alfa Romeo. Really pretty car.
Yeah, that is a nice looking car, isn't it? A classic. A GTV classic. In the red and the silver. And I love to see the BMWs in the all BMW factory colors.
Yep. That's John Nash in that Group 8 prepared Lotus 7.
Yeah, that's pretty, isn't it?
Oh, it's really pretty.
That looks fun.
Yeah, he's a really good driver. He races another Lotus 7 in our Group 3.
You need to be a good driver in one of those because you're very low down. They're twitchy at the best of times. They're very lightweight. And as you can see, the other cars he's racing against, much taller, hard to see over where he is at the moment. He's like in a go-kart in comparison to some of these bigger cars that he's up against.
Yeah.
So he's got to be aware at all times of cars coming up behind him, and also as he overtakes them, seeing him more or less.
Yeah, and you can really see Bill Glavin in the BMW E30 M3 and Norm Murdoch in that Ford Capri kind of pulling away from the Lotus 7 on the straights, but then in the twisty bits, he's got the advantage.
I have to be honest, when I was growing up in England, the 70s, the early 70s Ford Capri, that was the business. That's the car you wanted. That's what all the cop shows had.
Yeah.
Awesome car.
Jim Lenahan right there in that Datsun. Oh, and look at that. Bill Glavin gave a spot over there.
Yeah, he did.
And that's Alan Davis in that BMW E30 M3. I had to say that because I guess his family, I said the wrong name and they got mad at me. So Alan pulled me aside and said, make sure you say my name today. So Alan Davis, we're acknowledging that you are. I thought it was Bill and Billy Glavin in the two cars.
I see. Oh, it wasn't the pronunciation. It was
Alan
just
Davis.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't mispronounce it. I just didn't mention him.
How can you mispronounce Alan Davis?
But he's out there in that beautiful car having a blast, he said.
Yeah, we got a combination, like I said, of from 1965 to the mid-90s here. Mostly 70s or late 60s cars. And a combination of Japanese and European manufacturers. Here's a BMW. And
I think this is going to happen throughout the race because Bill Glavin and that BMW has the advantage in the speed. But now if John Nash can stick behind him a little bit, he's going to have the advantage until about turn 11 or 12.
I think you're right. So they pass our commentary position again. Kissinger from Stabler. Dunbar in third place at the moment. Then it's Wright, Lenahan, and Murdoch.
And that's John Perry right there in the number 14, 1972 Porsche 9146. Beautiful car.
Yeah, that is, isn't it?
It really shows up on video, that color. Look at that as he goes by Bill Glavin in the BMW. That's a neat shot there with the trees in the foreground.
It is, yeah.
And the cool thing about VIR is just its park-like setting. We had a question on Facebook about the Alfa Romeo, the number 242. And he didn't show up for the race. The GTV6, he did the Enduro. He did really well in SGT, and Trans Am got second place, Mark Brummond, but just didn't show up to the grid. I think he had too much to do in the hour-and-a-half Enduro to come right out here, or maybe he's putting gas in to come out. I don't know, but I don't know where he is. But he did race the previous session in an hour-and-a-half Enduro, so he's probably tired.
I was about to say, that was a long race. We had one major caution in it, and that would really sap you because it's quite warm out there right now.
So those are villas that you're seeing right there by the racetrack. You can come to VIR and rent those condos, and great view, really nice establishment. So you can come to VIR and rent the villas.
It's known as the Lodge Spas, I'm told.
And look at this, Alan Davis coming up on Mark Skeen right here. This should be a good battle. BMW 2002 and a BMW E30 M3. Probably my two favorite BMW racing platforms in that generation. But I also love the CSL.
Yeah, and you can also see how the M3 developed as well by the fact that that's an older one. The orange is just ahead of the much newer one. But as you can see, the body work has developed. But I love the fact that you can actually see how the marks grow but keep their basic outline and silhouette. And the number 38 of George Wright in the Datsun 240Z, just ahead of the number 3. And that's Kissinger. Excuse me, that's Jim Lenihan in the all orange Porsche. The 914 just at the back there. And now the Datsun coming up on the 118 of Keith Dunbar in the Lotus Salon.
I called it wrong. That's George Wright is in the 240 and Jim Lenihan is in that Porsche, the orange Porsche. And I know Jim Lenihan from that Datsun, so maybe he switched. Keith Dunbar right there, great shot. Look at how big that Datsun looks behind that Lotus.
I know, it does, doesn't it?
And a Datsun's not what you would call a big car.
Big car, no. But all the Lotuses just seem to be petite when it comes to either the Japanese or the American cars, of course. So they go through Snake, high above. These drone shots have been spectacular this weekend. Really impressed with that. As they come under the bridge, some of the big haulers heading out, having done their races. And we hope to be back here next year with a full crowd.
Yeah, we've had really good spectator counts the last couple of years here at VIR, and we expect to be here again next year around this time. And we promise to bring a good show. And so come on out, camp out, stay in a local hotel, rent one of those villas. But it is a really good time as we see Norm Murdoch come around the turn there, turn 12 Oak Tree, as he comes down and tries to put that forward power against the Porsche and the Datsun and the Lotus.
Yeah, don't be put off by the swanky resort here at VIR. Yes, there is a price to pay, as it were, to stay at the track, but there's plenty of hotels, just regular hotels around the area. Danville is only about 10 minutes away from the track itself, and it's a beautiful part of the world. It really is, right perched on the North Carolina-Virginia border. And as you can see from high above, rolling hills and woodland, a lot of farmland out here. And it truly is a great place to come visit. There's that Ford Capri. Currently 6 overall, Norm Murdoch. And that's a 1972 version of the Capri.
I think Keith Dunbar's got his hands full trying to keep these guys behind him in that Lotus Elan.
He's doing a good job so far, that's for sure.
That is a cool looking car.
Good little grouping coming here now. Porsche against Ford. That's a well-painted and nicely looked-after car, isn't it? It looks clean.
Yeah, it is. Up close, it looks really good. It's just a cool looking car. There's John Nash. Paul Stinson isn't in this race. He usually is in this group in his Lotus 7. It's cool to see Lotus 7s go at it.
Oh, yeah. So we've got a field of over 25 cars once again. In each group we've had, we kind of mix the groups together and kind of pile them into one group, so we get plus 20 almost in every group. And that just shows you the strength of vintage racing here in the States. I've been amazed ever since I've been here in the United States. You know, being from Britain, you kind of assume that vintage racing would be big in Britain and Europe, where, you know, a large percentage of those classic cars have come from back in the day. But then you come to the States and you realize that the money to buy the cars that are vintage is really here, and that's really why American vintage racing is so strong, so powerful, and so passionate, more importantly. I think if people didn't care about the cars, that would upset me, because they are beautiful cars, but they care immensely about them, perhaps more so than they do in Europe, to be honest.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I've never been to a European vintage racing event.
Well, we did, Greenlight did the Monaco Historic a couple of years ago. Hope to do it again post-COVID. But yeah, a fantastic event, and we had cars at Monaco all the way back to 1933.
Wow.
And it was the history of Monaco. We also had some of the original drivers as well.
New leaders here. Chip Stabler just takes the lead over Scott Kissinger.
The horseshoe.
We're going to see if he can keep it. So
yes, there he is.
That's Chip Stabler right there in a 1995 BMW M3, Group 12. Now there are two groups. So he's first in his class, and Kissinger in the Datsun is first in his class. But it doesn't really matter, because when you have somebody to race close with, you're still going to race them. That's a good shot right there that shows you that turn 1 is even more, a little bit slightly more than a 180-degree turn.
Yeah, you can see why they call it the horseshoe now, can't you? Yeah, that M3, I mean, that's synonymous. It's like AMG with Mercedes. The M3 version of BMW has just been a racing success over the decades, has it not?
Yeah, and lots of story. And then we've got 2 of those M3s out there with that kind of red, white, and blue, the coloring, which BMW is kind of known for, their factory cars. But then, you've got the Mustang GTs. That's their kind of like race group. You've got the RS and the SS for the Chevys. Things like it seems like every mark has their kind of thing, the Honda SIs, all that stuff.
And there was a time during the 70s and 80s where BMW totally dominated sports car racing here in the States. It was just the right package at the right time, and they were everywhere. Everywhere you could be, and the likes of Hobbs, Redmond, you name it, were all winning Sebring and those sorts of classic races. And, yeah, BMW put its name firmly on the map here in the United States, having done that already in Europe, of course. And in Asia, I think that's probably the most popular car. When I lived out in Asia, the BMW was, without doubt, that and Mercedes overtook Asia for a long time. So, beautiful sights and sounds here above VIR as we go back to another Datsun, the number 13 of Sharon Alderman. Oh, excuse me, not
Andrew Dahl.
Andrew Dahl. I misread her, excuse me.
That should be Brian Kelt right there.
Yeah, that is Brian Kelt in the BMW 325i.
2007, so that's the newest car in this group.
Yeah, by a long way, too. I thought it was up to 95, but you're right. 2007 is the newest car here, that BMW 325i. The 325i, another one of the great BMWs off the mark.
He's with HMS, too. Bill and Billy Glavin. Billy Glavin used to run in a series of BMW's E30 series, and so he's brought a lot of his customers and friends over from that to race here with us, and they're all out of the kind of Charlotte, North Carolina area. That's a pretty car right there.
Yeah, it is, and well prepared too. You can see I had a close look at that yesterday, and they're beautifully prepared. Everybody's got all the right gear on, and they're just not touching it when they don't need to, but they're just making the odd observation and the odd tweak here and there. But a well-prepared HMS team for sure.
A 4-door race car. You don't see that very often.
No, you don't. But it's stripped right down, I can assure you.
So you could see, if you know what the MGB GT is,
yep,
how Datsun just took the MGB GT and
took
said,
the back of it.
We're just going to make it better.
Yeah.
But they basically took the same lines and said, what if we made one of these reliable?
And put a bigger engine in.
Yeah, we put a straight 6 in it, and we made an MGB GT reliable, and then it dominated.
Yeah, totally. So here comes your leader. Stabler's doing a really good job in the 827. Took the lead a couple of laps ago and has never really looked back. He's built on that lead. He's got a 3-second lead over Kissinger at the moment.
And he should. In that car, we got the last lap sign out from Steve there. But he should have the lead over that 240.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, my buddies in the what I call the vintage, even though this is vintage racing, but the older, the 60s, 70s, 50s cars will take somebody in a newer car, and I love that. It's kind of the underdog story.
Yep, we like that. Through the trees he comes then for the final time. Stabler, Kissinger, and Dunbar leading this race. This is our Group 8 and Group 12B, last race of the weekend for them.
Notice that little red box there in his grill. That's the transponder. And we were joking yesterday that that's what scores them when they come over the line, and they try to put that up front. We've had a race before where a guy had his transponder like on his dash, and another guy had it on his front bumper. Well, the guy that had it on his dash by the photos won the race, but he wasn't scored the race because the other guy was right behind him and actually won because he won from his transponder being more up front. So,
well, there's no rule on where you put the transponder.
No, not
right?
really. But where it's an advantage if you can put it up front.
Of course. And talking of up front, here comes Chip Stabler for the last time in the Atlantic Auto Exchange, black and white. BMW out of 12 and down the back straight he comes. There's the gap to second place. And that's the 202 of Scott Kissinger in the Datsun 240Z.
I love watching their hands come through here. And Scott Kissinger had on some white gloves. You could really see he put the wheel one time and just kind of held it. Is that
an homage to the Japanese engineers that wear white gloves when they prepare the cars? Maybe.
Yeah. That's a cool shot coming over the hill.
Great shot. And that's a fantastic shot too. Look at that. Looking at roller coaster from high above. And this is the last complex of this VIR circuit. And Stable Stabler coming down the hill for the last time. And when he comes out of Hog Pen, he should see the checkered flag. Powers on through up the hill. It's actually much more undulating, that front straight, than it looks. It weaves and dives and ducks, and then finally you find the checkered flag, and there it is! Chip Stabler wins for the BMW M3, the 1995 car.
There he is waving to us.
There you go.
Good job, Chip.
Nice job. And it looks as though Scott Kissinger will take second place in the Datsun. There is a little smidgen of crowd out there. I think there's a few people who have sneaked in. But officially, we are not open for business in terms of crowd. As the checkered flag waves. As the Lotus comes across. And that's Keith Dunbar in the Lotus Elan. And the Porsche comes across the line now. That's Jim Lenahan.
John Nash right there in the Lotus 7, followed by Bill Glavin and Rob Davenport. Norm Murdoch, Mark Skeen, Alan Davis. Those are some close races at the end.
Yeah, in fact, that mid-pack was very nicely, tightly bunched together and enjoying themselves, I'm sure. A little bit easier for Chip at the front.
So if you're just joining us on social media or the SVRA app, tell us where you're watching from, who you're rooting for, or what cars are your favorite, or if you have any questions. We are monitoring that, and we will answer your questions.
Confirmation of the result. Chip Stabler with the BMW M3 takes the victory over Scott Kissinger in the Datsun 240Z. Then Keith Dunbar in the Lotus Elan, George Wright, Jim Lenahan, and John Nash in 6th place. Bill Glavin in 7th, Davenport 8th, Murdoch 9th, and Mark Skeen, father of Mike Skeen, who leads the TA2 Championship. Interesting combination there, father and son, not racing together, but out in the same racing event. So that finishes our Group 8 and 12B feature race 2. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more from VIR in a moment.